Hello and welcome to this bonus episode of the Christian Reeve Podcast, where I am fucked off, and I shouldn't be. I should be in a great mood. It should be the most positive thing ever. I've just achieved 300 episodes of the Christian Reeve Podcast. We're doing bonus episodes, questions from you, from the wonderful Vilma. Thank you so much. But yeah, I can't, when I'm doing these, I can't not comment on what's going on in my life as I'm recording the video, because as you know, with me, I tell you exactly what's going on as it's going on. You know, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to play like, yeah, everything's great, I'm so wonderful. Nah, it's shit. It's funny, this episode's about self-discovery and growth. This is a bonus episode to celebrate the 300th episode of the Christian Reeve Podcast. And I wonder sometimes with that, like, I feel like I have grown over the years a lot, but I also feel like I'm stagnating. But not because of personal development, more so because of just like life not moving forward at all, and me stuck doing the same shit I was doing years ago, despite me sacrificing everything I have and trying to just make things happen. You can't control the actions of others. You can't control how people treat you. All you can do is say no to that treatment, walk away with your self-respect, and just kind of focus on people that will give you the time of day and will treat you with the respect you deserve. It's not the first time I felt this way. It won't be the last time. But when you've been doing this for as many years as I have, and you notice the way that people get treated, and then you notice the way that you get treated, you start to question things. Yourself, society, the industries you're trying to get into, and so on and so forth. I'm at a point now where people say wonderful things to me. Friends, family, you wonderful people on the internet. And, you know, I believe in myself, and I believe the things that people say are true. But I also look at like how my reality is not matching up with what people say, and indeed the way I feel and think about myself. And that's just a fact of life. Sometimes, you know, it doesn't matter how much you try and struggle and persevere and throw yourself into life. Sometimes it still won't work out. And I can't count how many times I've said this over the years. I'm a fucking broken record at this point. But I have to get it out. I can't not talk about it before we have some fun. We're going to have some fun. This is going to be a positive episode. But unfortunately, yeah. Right now should be the fucking most positive time in my life. It should be. 300 episodes. An album out. I just got signed with a new agent. You know, these are all good things. And it should be a positive time. But instead, I'm like failing to get gigs, failing to get the respect I deserve amongst places that I've been performing at and helping for fucking years at this point. There's one thing when it's like you're throwing your shot at people that don't know you, that, you know, people that don't know what to expect or don't see why they should give you a chance. But when it's places where you've given everything and then you just get disrespect in return, and they don't even consider you as an important consideration, you look at it like, why am I fucking bothering them? I'll go elsewhere where I will get respected and I will get treated with the respect that I deserve. Because one thing about me is I'm very final with things. If I've been disrespected, if I have been treated in a shitty way, I reflect on it. I throw the emotion out there. I get angry, I get upset, whatever. And then I move on. And that's a really, really important lesson I've learned over the years, is you have to move on. Once you've got it out of your system, you know, don't carry it with you. Don't be bitter. Don't be resentful. Just move on. So this is me getting it out, you know, and come tomorrow, it's gone. That's it. And that's a big part of self-discovery and growth. So there it is. I don't want you guys to worry. It's an interesting time, you know, because on one hand, I don't feel like I'm making any progress moving forward with my goal of doing creative stuff for a living. But I tell you what, it's been a crazy busy time for me, creatively speaking, which is my happy place. That's where I love to be. And you really have to take the good with the bad in situations like this. I can't count how many times I've been going through a difficult time in my life or something not working out, and it led to my best art, you know, like best songs or best podcasts or, you know, whatever the fact. There's something about suffering and struggle that really often brings the best out in people. But only if you can kind of focus in on that and elicit the right emotions from it, try to get the best of it, because it's very easy to be self-destructive in those moments and, you know, resort to just drinking or overeating or whatever, just like bad habits, destroying yourself. Lord knows I'm guilty of it. Or you can choose the other route. You can choose discipline. You can choose to let it go and just work on yourself and be in that happy, positive space. But it takes a lot, man. It's easier said than done. So there it is. But let's dive into this. Thank you so much, Vilma, for doing this. I really, really owe you one. You've been a real asset and a real good friend and just a big supporter over the years. I just want to say a massive thank you, Vilma, for making this happen. Let's get into this, man. Let's have some fun. Let's take this to a positive place. So 25 questions on self-discovery and growth. Question number 1. What's one thing about yourself that's changed most over the years? Ooh. Ooh. That's a tough one. One thing about yourself that has changed the most over the years. There's a few things, but I think the biggest thing is that I'm like not afraid to take a chance now. There's a part of me that just kind of says, fuck it. And, you know, that part of me has always existed in some shape or form. You know, like, for example, I used to be a skateboarder for many years in my youth, and I did it for 7 years. And I remember that, like, when I was learning to first drop into a skate ramp, it's a scary thing. You're at the top of this ramp, you know, the only way is down. And it's kind of sink or swim. You either land the trick or you fail and it hurts. But, you know, ironically, skateboarding, it teaches you a lot of life lessons. And that was a big one. It's like, you have to go with it, man. Sooner or later, you're going to have to drop in. Sooner or later, you're going to have to take that chance. And, you know, I don't think that there's ever really any bad falls overall. Like, yes, they might be painful short term, but long term, you'll get something out of it. You know, a life lesson, some strength, whatever the case may be. I've never regretted taking chances. Even when they didn't work out, I always learned something. I always got better. But I would say the big thing that's changed the most is taking chances. Just throwing myself out there and not really giving a fuck whether or not it works out or what will happen or how difficult it will be. You know, if you look at the way my life is now, I'm not surprised that it's a struggle. I'm not surprised because I chose a difficult route in life. And I knew that going in. I knew it would be difficult. And if you're wondering what that sound is, it's the sound of a really, really loud train outside. But if I shut the window, I won't have any air. So that's yeah. There's always some shit I got to deal with. Some shit ruining my perfect moment. But yeah, that's the deal, man. If there's ever a lesson there, it's take the chance. And you know, I didn't used to be that person. I used to worry about consequences. I used to worry about like, oh, what if I don't have money? What if this doesn't work out? What if that doesn't work out? And now I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. Something will work out. I don't know how. I don't know when, but something will work out. And it always does. But I think a big part of that is being proactive. Keep trying, try different things. Don't be afraid to try different things. And also, like, nothing is beneath you. You know, if you need money, if you need work, like, nothing is beneath you. Just do it. You know. Question number 2. What's a defining moment in your life that shaped who you are today? Damn, Vilma, these are tough ones. There's been a lot. Defining moment in my life that shaped who I am today. Well, it's it's not the, isn't it? Like, that's a big part of this question. All right, here's a fun one. I don't know if I've told this one before. So, me going on stage and being a performer and doing music is all because of my mum. And the funny thing is, like, she's never seen me play live in bands or as a solo artist, but she was there the first time I ever got on stage. And it's interesting. I know she doesn't like me to talk about her, so I'll keep this brief, but I'll share this because it's one of those things. So thank you, Mum, if you ever see this. At the time, I was 18. I was 14, sorry. I was in year 8. There you go. 13, 14. And we were doing like a pop project at school, which basically, like, we had to get together in groups or pairs or something, write a song together, perform it in front of the class, and then if the class voted that the song was good or good enough, they would push it through to this like little mini gig that we were doing in front of the year or something like that. My group didn't get through. It was just me and this other guy, and but I wrote a song. And at the time, I'd only just started playing guitar, and I'd been playing guitar for maybe like, less than a year at that point. But I wrote this song, the first song I ever wrote. And there was this place that did open mics, and I remember a lot of talented people would show up at that place, and it was in kind of in the sticks a little bit. Can't remember why we were there. I think maybe to see a friend or something. But they had like an open mic type thing, and my mum sort of turned to me and she was like, "You should go on stage." And I was like, "Absolutely not." I just happened to have this stuff on me, my guitar and stuff, because at that day we had done the pop project thing at school. But she was like, "You should go on stage," and she pushed me into doing it. But it wasn't like if I'd have really protested, it would have been fine. I would have just not done it. But I could tell that her pushing me was because she really felt like this is something I should do. Like, not for her, not for anyone else but me. It was like something I should do for me. And so I did it. I got on stage, I performed, and, you know, everyone liked it and they clapped and stuff. And I was like, there's something here. This feels right in some way. And, you know, ever since I've gotten on the stage over the years, every single time, whether I felt nervous, whether I didn't, it always felt right. And I would say that's a defining moment in my life because I love to perform. I love to entertain. I don't get nervous anymore. I feel the nerves a little bit, but, you know, I think when you understand that you belong somewhere, you don't question it anymore. You don't question yourself anymore. You can't control the external stimuli. You can't control the audience or anything like that as far as like what they're going to be like, but you can control how you react to that situation. Question number 3. If you had to describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be? Passionate. Passionate, stubborn, and driven. So let me explain. Passion, because I live life for life, man. I love life. I think you should throw yourself into everything you do and do it with passion, because that's what life is about, and that's how you'll get the best out of life. I'm stubborn, but I wouldn't say to a point where I'm blind. I'm just stubborn in the sense that, you know, I'll take on board what people say, but ultimately I'm going to do what I feel is right for me. and sometimes that'll piss people off, but it's my life, so live with it. I think you need that in life. You need to be a little bit stubborn, but it's like with all things, balance. You know, you can't be so stubborn that you don't hear and listen to other people, but you can't let those people run your life. It's your life for a reason. And driven, because look, you have to have drive in life. It's the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. It's the thing that gets you out there in the world, taking chances in life and on yourself. So it's really important. Question number 4. What's something you believed about yourself but no longer do? Ooh, wow. Oh, God, I don't know. What's something I believed about myself but no longer do? Okay. Well, this is kind of... I mean, it's a big one. I used to believe that I didn't... Like, I wasn't a creative. Like, when I gave up on music and creativity the first time, and I let people get in my ear and tell me it was all a pipe dream and it wasn't for me and it wasn't what I should be doing. There was a sliver of time where I did believe I was this office business guy, and I tried it, and there was so many points over the years where life was trying to scream at me that wasn't the case. Like, I remember at uni being in the lecture hall and looking around and just seeing everyone and being like, this isn't me. I don't fit in here. Whenever I would put on the suit and tie and have the slick back hair and shit, I was playing a character. It wasn't me. It wasn't Christian. It was this, I don't even know what to fucking call it, really. It was just corporate Christian, if you want to call it that. But there was a sliver of time when I tried to believe it and tried to go with it, and it's funny, like, however much you steer away from your path, life will always kick you back onto it. You can't resist your path. You can try, but life will keep forcing you there. That's why you always hear people that like give up on life and they get into drinking and destroying themselves or whatever, and then people you always hear people say about them like, oh, they had all the potential in the world and they just couldn't realize it, they couldn't grab it. And it comes from a certain level of discipline and believing in yourself and believing that this is you and that you deserve it. Imposter syndrome is a real thing, and it can really prevent you from being the best version of yourself. And I say to anyone that has imposter syndrome, that doesn't believe in themselves, that doesn't believe that they belong there, stop focusing on, the world around you and what people say and all that. Just focus on how things feel. Does it feel right or does it feel wrong? Do you miss it when you're not doing it and feel like you should be doing it? Like, pay attention to shit like that. Question number 5. What's the hardest personal lesson you've ever had to learn? So many. Probably that the only person you can ever truly rely on is yourself. You'll have people along the way that will help you, support you, but people will betray you. People will switch on you. People will be fickle. If you're lucky, you'll have a few good friends and supporters around you, and hopefully a good family. But the only person you can ever truly rely on is yourself. 100%. Question number 6. What's a piece of advice you would give your younger self? I've answered this a few times, but just not to worry so much. Things will work out, even if they get difficult or worse. Place the bets on yourself. Place a bet on yourself and stop worrying so much. Even if you can't see the answers clearly just yet, you can't see the solutions clearly, have faith in yourself, trust yourself. The answers will come. Question number 7. How do you measure personal success? This is a brilliant question because I go back and forth all the time. You hear me complain sometimes often about how I wish my life was different. People have told me over the years that I'm successful. They'll say, you're a success. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And they're like, what do you mean? You've done all these things. And I'm like, well, for me, success is progress. So I think people they kind of get it confused with me. They think that I'm obsessed with like money or fame. Like I need to be this big celebrity or some shit. It's like, I don't care about that. What I care about is doing this for a living. That's what I want. If I was doing this for a living, I'd be happy. But I'm not. You know, I work for minimum wage doing things like hospitality and struggling to get by. You know, that's my life. That's my reality. So when you hear me talk about my reality and why I wish it were different and why I get upset and wish I had opportunities and chances that I don't have and wish I didn't get overlooked and so on and so forth, it's because my life is not pushing forward like step by step. Like if it was like we're making a little bit of money compared to last year making no money, great. If it were like, half of my week is spent doing this and making money from it and half is spent from hospitality, great. That would be progress, but we're not there. You know, if anything, I tend to regress a lot. So for instance, I can't count how many Patreon subscribers, despite developing new series and pouring my heart and my soul into that and trying to think of different ways to get people engaged, to bring people on board. I've lost more than I've gained. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Like I really do throw my heart and my soul into everything I do, and it doesn't really seem to make a difference. And I wish it did. It's the hard reality of being a creative, is just because you love it, just because you're getting better and you're putting everything into it, that doesn't mean that you'll achieve success. And I try to pull it back sometimes and look at things and be like, I'm happy that I at least did these things. You know, like I released an album, 3 music videos, I've been in films, TV shows, I've been the lead, I've worked with, famous people that I looked up to. I've done a lot of things in my life and continue to, and I'm proud of those things. But I just wish that it was my living and not just this thing that I'm forever pursuing and which feels like it doesn't want me back. You know, it's like chasing someone that you love and they don't love you back. It's one of those. It's heartbreaking. Question number 8. Is there a fear you've overcome that you never thought you would? Interesting. I don't know about that one. I don't know. I don't think I've ever really been like a fearful person as far as like approaching life. The only thing I've ever really feared is like being in a position where I wouldn't be able to take care of myself. Like that's the thing I've always feared, and I've gotten better with and learned over the years. Like I said before, you have to trust yourself and trust the process, and it'll work out, kind of thing. I guess you could say that maybe there was a point where I didn't think I would overcome that, but then I wasn't really trying to overcome that. I was just in a state of fear. And then I got sick and tired of feeling that way and being miserable all the time. And, sooner or later there comes a point in your life where you have to try things differently. Life is always changing anyway, so you have to adapt or die. That's kind of the reality, really. And that's I think that's the biggest fear I've ever overcome, is that. Yeah. Question number 9. What's a past version of yourself that you're really proud of? When I was at university, that kid had so much on his shoulders. Just unbelievable. I was in a toxic relationship that was destroying my life. I had to work full time because this person refused to work full time or work at all. So it was all on my shoulders to take care of both of us. Plus, try to find time to study, even though I didn't have a place to study because they took up all my space, and I spent all my time working, as I said before. I really had the weight of the world on my shoulders at that point, and during a time when most people were having fun and partying and all that, I was having some of the worst times in my life. And when I look back at that kid, like, I'll never forget the day that I got my degree results. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was working the bar at this restaurant in a hotel, and it was a hotel where I worked pretty much full time. I was the only like 0 hours guy that was working full time there, and that seems to be a theme in my life where I kind of just like throw myself into it and go, yeah, I'll do this, and because of that I learned to do like barista, bartending, every kind of hospitality there is. So I was proud of that too, actually. But I'd worked the morning shift at this bar, and I was working split shift, like all day long shit. So I was doing the breakfast, the lunch service, and then dinner, and then I was probably going to work through till like 2 a.m. or something stupid like that. But that particular day was results day. So I'd finished up the breakfast shift, cleaning up, and anxiously waiting these results. I finally get them, I figure it out, and I'm just jumping up and down with joy, and had this wave of relief because I'd thought about just the years of torment and turmoil, which wouldn't be over anytime soon, but at least I got that degree. At least, despite everything else going wrong in my life at that point, like, that I got that. And it really felt like a big hug, like a light in darkness. I apologize for being dramatic, but it's me. Like, I can't tell you how much that meant to me at that point in my life. And I always look back and I'm proud of that kid, because he really had the weight of the world on his shoulders and just was so miserable a lot of the time, and trying so hard to put a smile on his face, but he was falling apart. And he got that degree, man. Despite everything, he got it. So yeah, I'll always be proud of that past version of me. Question number 10. How do you handle constructive criticism or feedback? Very simply, there's two things that I look at. Number one, how was the message relayed to you? No, three things actually. Number one, how was the message relayed to you? Number two, who or what is the source? Number three, is this useful to me in some shape or form? So number one, let's break it all down. Like, in general, like, I consider the source. If it's just some hater on the internet or some random person, it's important to take it on board if it's constructive. I think all constructive criticism or feedback can be useful, and I've used it even when it's been horrible and negative in the past. I've still used it. There seems to be this expectation I've noticed with constructive criticism and feedback that if someone is giving you it, you have to take it, and it's like, no, I fucking don't. And not taking your advice or constructive criticism or feedback doesn't make me stubborn or like I'm not willing to take it on board. I'm just not choosing not to act on it. People are always going to give you their opinion when you're doing anything creative, but ultimately it's your vision, it's your life, it's what feels right to you, And I think it's always important to take on board what people say, because it can influence and shape the way you do things, and it can help you. It can make you consider things you've never considered before. It can be a really positive thing. But let's be honest, most people that are criticizing you, that are giving you feedback, it's often going to be negative. But it's up to them how they choose to relay that message. It's one thing if, say, you're a singer and someone comes up to you and says, hey, you're struggling with your vocal ability there. If you would try X, Y, and Z, it would really help with your performance. See, that's good constructive criticism. That helps. That can help an artist. That can help a performer. Now, if someone comes up to you and says, you're fucking shit at singing and you should give up and die, which is, I've received comments like that plenty of times. How do you think I'm going to respond to that? Now, sometimes it's interesting. I said that you'll get stuff that you'll consider, but ultimately you'll reject because it doesn't work for you. Like, there's been times when people have suggested ideas and ultimately I've not gone with them. And then they might have got annoyed or they might have not understood. And again, I say, it's your life, man. You just have to consider anytime you give people advice, criticism, whatever it is, it's up to them whether it's take it or leave it, you know? And I always preface that when I give advice and feedback, I always say to the person, like, look, take it for what it's worth. If it doesn't resonate, it doesn't resonate. Fine. You know? Question number 11. What's a moment in your life that made you realize how much you've grown as a person? Oh, wow. I think maybe my ability to not act on emotion. So you see me, I'm a passionate guy. I rant, I get annoyed, I get upset, you know. But I used to allow that person to be, you know, steering the wheel, which is a terrible thing. You can't be acting on emotion. You'll always make the worst choices when you're angry, upset, whatever. That's why sayings like sleep on it exist, you know. People like my friend Vilma have given me advice over the years, and at first I was like, I don't know. And she might have said, or I'll say, I'm going to sleep on it. And then the next day, if I feel the same, not happening. If I feel differently, well, I've slept on it. I feel differently now, you know, because that's a big thing. Like, you're not in your right state of mind when you're upset, when you're frustrated, angry, whatever. So how can you really think clearly and make a decision that's right for you? That was a realization I made a few years back, that I do that. Because a lot of the time, like, you don't realize that you've changed as a person until you sit down and look at things, or you get, like, a big one is when someone shows you like an old photo of yourself and you think back to who you were at that point, and it's like, wow, like how far we've come. You know, that's why I'm a big fan of nostalgia and reflection, like introspection and stuff, because it really shows you just how far you've come. That, and like when people tell you, when they say, I'm proud of you, or, you know, wow, look how far you've come, or look at what you've done, because I don't think that we often stop and take a look at ourselves, and maybe we should more, because, you know, this is a journey we're all on, and it goes so fast. Question number 12. Do you believe people can truly change, or do we just become more of who we already are? Wow. That is an outstanding question. I really don't know. I feel like it could be either, to be honest. You know, I've seen both. I've seen people who have truly changed, and it took like a lot of work on their part, or an epiphany, you know, when they say, like, you know, a big life-changing moment or a realization that led them to make better choices. I've also seen situations where, you know, someone was clearly a little bit cocky or arrogant, and then they got a big opportunity that changed their life, and suddenly they became a monster. I've seen that happen. And you can make the argument that that person was always there, and, you know, once they got the chance, they fully, you know, kind of like the peacock, they showed their feathers, you know. It's a hard one. It's a hard one. I think that the core essence of you never truly changes. You know, you hear people say things like good people can do bad things and bad people can do good things. I think whether or not you're a good or bad person that's from like day one. You know, I know people say, like, how could a child be evil? Sometimes you see it, man. It's one thing to like be spiteful or have like these childish tendencies that you grow out of, but sometimes that mean-spirited nature, you see it in a person at a young age, and then they carry it with them into life, and it's a very dangerous trait. I think certainly with myself, I've become who I am supposed to become, but it came through many years and phases, you know. I always tell people that, you know, I'm very confident as a person, but I always preface it by saying that, you know, I wasn't always that way. You know, I used to be negative minded. I used to be, you know, very downtrodden and, you know, self-deprecating as a person. And I think it's natural as a creative person to be self-critical. It's natural to always be looking at others and going, wow, they're so brilliant, but I wish I was better. And often you're so much better than you think you are, but you know, it's hard to see it because you've spent so long being down on yourself, you know. But then some people take it too far the other way and they become egotistical to the point that they're blind and, you know, no one can reach them. And the reality is, like, you've always got work to do. You can always be better. You can always improve. You know, that's the reality of being a human being. So I guess my simple answer is kind of a bit of yes to both. You know, I guess it really depends on the person. Question number 13. What's one thing you still struggle with when it comes to personal growth? Consistency in mindset. You know, one day I'm like, I completely believe in myself and it's going to happen, and it's not if, it's when. Other days I look at it like, hey, you're kidding yourself, bro. It's difficult to stay consistent with that mindset, given what life throws at you and how disheartening it can be. So the one thing that I always try to do is focus more on my actions rather than how I feel about things. You know, regardless of how I feel and how miserable I might feel because of life, I try to just not let that affect my actions. Like right now, you know, I'm feeling low about things, but I'm being productive. I'm getting shit done. Because that's how I deal with stuff. You know, bury myself in work. And also just, what else is there? What are you going to do? Sit and cry in the corner? I mean, it's good to have a little bit of a cry sometimes and get it out, but you can't live in that. You can't, quote unquote, like bury your head in the sand, because if you do, there's consequences. Things will get harder. Life will get worse, and it's all your own doing. And then it's worse because then you've got the guilt of allowing yourself to get into that. It's hard being human, isn't it? It's hard being an adult. You know, this is the shit your parents never told you growing up, that like you'd be battling yourself. You know, forget the world and the dangers of the outside world. A lot of the time, it's just you against you, and that's the hardest battle you'll ever hope to overcome. You know. Question number 14: if you could instantly master one skill or trait, what would it be? I'd learn to play piano. I've always wanted to learn to play piano, just so I could play Chopin. I adore his work. So yeah. Question number 15. Do you think you're harder on yourself than you should be? Actually, no. I think I'm the right level of hard on myself, because I think you need it to get the best out of yourself. You know, like I said before, you can't rest on your laurels and just think like, okay, this is it. This is enough now. I've done enough. It's about accountability and responsibility. I think it's important to be hard on yourself. But the caveat to that is to make sure to celebrate things, to see the positives within negative situations or hard times, or, you know, even if something didn't quite work out the way you wanted it to, still see the positives. So take this podcast, 300 episodes. On that show, I talk about how, you know, I wish there was a bigger established audience, and how I've desperately tried to create that over the years and it's just not happened, and how heartbreaking and devastating that is. But then what's the positivity? There's a awesome handful of people that are committed and listen to this show and love the show. That's huge. Getting people's attention in this day and age, I mean, that's massive. And that's an achievement. You know, it might not be the achievement that you were looking for, but it's an achievement nonetheless, and it's something to be celebrated. And that's something that I strive to be better at and try to be better at, is appreciating those things. And Not just sitting there in despair going like, oh, everything sucks, everything's shit. Because that's not how life is, you know? Moving on. Question number 16. How do you keep yourself accountable when working towards a personal goal? Just kind of take it like short term, step by step. Just keep reflecting, keep looking at it, re-examining it, I suppose. Question number 17. What's something you've learned about yourself this year? I don't know that I've really learned anything about myself. I guess the only thing I could really say is that, like, I don't think giving up is in my vocabulary. And I don't know if that's because I'm stubborn or if I've just got this big self-belief thing going on, or I don't know. But I feel like nothing is worse than giving up. And even though I've felt like I wanted to give up, I've never wanted to do it because I just think, fuck that, man. You ain't going to defeat me. I don't know. What the hell do I know? Question number 18. Do you think self-reflection is more beneficial or can it lead to overthinking? I can see why the question is as it is. And what I would say is, again, balance. Is self-reflection beneficial? Absolutely. Should you do it all the time? No, because it will lead to overthinking. So find the balance. Choose your moments. Like, okay, sometimes I'm going to reflect on things. Other times I'm just going to live in this moment and not think about the wider, reality of what's going on. It's important to live in the moment. And if you self-reflect too much and you spend too much time with introspection, I think it can ruin your ability to live in the moment and appreciate the little things in life. Because often they tend to be the more important things anyway. So yeah. Question number 19. What's a moment when you realized you were no longer the person you used to be? Ooh. So I think it was sometime in COVID, like a year or two in. And I remember just looking at myself in the mirror one day and just thinking, the boy is dead and a man stands in his place. And it was a moment of sadness, but also pride at the same time. It was a very weird juxtaposition of emotions because my 20s was difficult, and right now I'm making up for a lot of lost time because of how life went and what happened to me and stuff in my early to mid 20s. It was pretty brutal, and that kid, sometimes life is going to be that way and it's going to teach you some hard lessons and hard truths, but sometimes for people it can be so brutal that it can just completely destroy who you were, and you have to be someone else in order to cope. And that's what I had to do. And it's bittersweet. I'm proud of the man I became, but I feel for that kid because, he didn't ask for that shit. But then again, I don't know. Ideally, things should be gradual. You should build towards becoming an adult and stuff. But sometimes, like, you have to, run before you can crawl, And that's just life. But that was a big moment. That was a pretty poignant moment, I would say. And that's when I realized. Question number 20. If you could spend a day as any version of yourself from the past, which one would you choose and why? Oof. I'd probably spend a day as a kid with my mum going somewhere. I adored spending time with her and doing things together and seeing her passions and doing that. And I have so many fond memories, and they're just pure memories, man. You know, untouched by time, no matter what. And yeah, I was happy. Despite everything, I was happy. So yeah, cool. Question number 21. If your personality had a tagline or slogan, what would it be? I don't know. I feel like that's more of a question you'd have to ask other people. It's difficult to answer questions about things like this, because I'm sure like all the people that know me would immediately be like, oh, this. But I don't know. I guess maybe... I don't know. I really couldn't say on that one, actually. I'm stumped. Sorry. Question number 22. What's a childhood trait you've held on to as an adult? Oh, that's easy. Childhood wonder, like eyes of wonder. I look at life like an adventure, and I've always been really curious. And I had that when I was a kid, and I have that now. And I'm glad I kept on to it, because it's very easy to lose these traits and to just kind of get bored and just settle and be content in life, and that'll never be me. So that's a big one. Question number 23. If someone wrote a book about your personal growth journey, what would the title be? God, I don't know. Maybe like, is stubbornness the answer? With that question mark, because it's open-ended and it's still ongoing. Question number 24. What's a weird or unexpected way you've learned something important about yourself? I don't know. Again, I would say in me taking chances in life and going for things, I've learned how to do a lot of things that I guess I wouldn't have fathomed that I could do. And I always put it down to maybe like learning things quickly. Maybe that's one. Because at school they made me feel like an idiot. And then when I got out into the real world, I realized I can pick up things pretty quickly. Like in my own way. And that was kind of unexpected, I suppose, because, you know, I was primed to believe I was useless and stupid and all this. And school was wrong, man. They're supposed to foster brilliance, and instead they just tear you down, tear you apart. But that was pretty unexpected, and you know, I learned a lot there. Question number 25. If future you could send one message right now, what do you think it would say? Probably just to like hang in there. It's all going to work out, kid. I don't know, man. Who the fuck knows? All I know is I'm grateful for you wonderful people, for being here, for following me in this journey. Who knows where it's going to go next? But thank you so much for following me, for watching, for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.